My God.
Just want to make sure everybody knows on this half of your screen, it's clean. You see how that rhymes?
So unnecessary.
Over there.
I just washed my hands.
Her new nickname, Nasty Hands Nevels.
I wash my hands.
Do you
I don't
wash
need
them properly?
Alcohol. I don't need alcohol.
Do you wash them properly?
Yes, I do.
So you sing happy birthday 2 times in your head while you wash with soap and water?
Crazy.
Thank you. We did talk about that in the show today. If you want to be on this side, it's the clean side.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you. But actually
So
today,
obsessive.
we are talking about, I think, a really important discussion that is quite controversial. Here's what I mean. There's a reporter for the Washington Post who tweeted soon after Kobe Bryant's passing with a link to a story about his accusations of being a rapist. He had to go to court. He settled out of court, admitted to marital infidelity. This was 20 years ago. And it really was a turning point in his life where he really kind of turned things around in his life after that moment. His wife forgave him, it seems, and they continued their marriage together. But this reporter who brought it up was not just attacked on Twitter, but was suspended for it. And there's an editorial in NBC News called, I love showing this to you, Kobe Bryant died an inspiration to many, but not all. Why we can't ignore, and we can't ignore why. So this person is saying that not only can we not ignore the fact that he was charged or he was accused of rape and settled out of court for it and admitted to the infidelity, but because it was a turning point in his life, it ought to be discussed. But is it too soon? I don't know that anyone would argue it shouldn't be discussed ever. But is it too soon?
It's the timing, yeah. Goodness gracious.
So is it too soon?
Now, from the victim, she could do whatever she wants to be honest. It's like the media that I'm just like...
You think it's too soon?
I think it's too soon. Because I look at my own life and I'm like, can you imagine if people did that with me? Or with a loved one in your life? Or at the funeral, if they took their little pulpit or their little platform to talk about how they were hurt by your family member? That's messed up.
Well, my mother had to confront this when she eulogized her father. Because her father was an alcoholic, emotionally abusive, mean. Like, he was not a nice person. And everybody in the room knew he wasn't a nice person.
Yeah.
She found a way to gently, I think, acknowledge that fact while still honoring him. And I think, isn't that what the reporter was doing, was just gently saying, whoa, guys, let's not forget, as you all treat him like he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, don't forget he's accused of rape. And he admitted to the extramarital affair.
Yeah.
Look at you. You don't want to ever bring it up.
No, I didn't say ever. Good morning, India. I love your name.
Oh, cool.
India. I love it. Marianne and Eva, good morning. Callie. Mike says, why does the media focus on people's dirt in their lives from the past? And if we're going to start doing that, can we do that with everybody then?
Actually, what does the Bible do, Janelle?
What? No. We're not talking about the Bible. We're talking about the media and us.
Okay, but let's review. Solomon, no mistakes, right?
We're not saying never be
Samson?
We're saying timing.
David, Jonah.
Timing. It's timing.
God points out people's flaws on purpose so that we can see our need for forgiveness.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm talking about timing. There's been some prominent figures that have died, and man, can we take some time to just let people grieve? India says, oh, thank you, Janelle. Yes, your name's cool. I like it.
Robert's here.
Robert, can you educate this man? Do you think it's too soon? Really, we got to start talking about people's dirt. He wasn't come on Monday people were talking about this?
And I say to you, are you kidding me? A Washington Post reporter who was sexually assaulted herself simply tweets a link to an article that Kobe Bryant was accused of rape, and she got suspended? You feel good about that?
Yeah, I don't know about that one. Roseanne says, my guess is the media people are trying to sell news. The truth remains the truth. And he committed whatever sins or crimes, and obviously that's now for him and God to have dealt with. Wonderful that he turned his life around. If people want to talk about that, perhaps a bit later, once his His family has had the time to mourn his daughters and him, his daughter and him. This may be a bit more appropriate time. Thank you. Like, there are people involved. He has a dad, a mom, his sisters. We're going to start talking about that. Not even a week after he died.
Okay, so
that's not cool. And we don't do that with other people. We do not do that
yes,
with
we do
other
actually.
people.
We do.
Who? Give me an example.
I will give you an example, but you got to understand that I'm going to use hyperbole here for a purpose. Because I think what we have to be careful of is who gets to decide which people we ignore their faults and which people we focus on them. Case in point, Osama bin Laden had a wife and kids. Isn't it
We're
being
gonna
disrespectful?
put Osama bin
No, I'm not.
Laden-
See, you're not being fair now.
Oh
No.
my gosh! First
She's
of
not
all,
being fair.
he wasn't even prosecuted.
No, listen to me. You're not being fair. I'm showing you the extreme example.
Oh.
Do you see how there are some people that we would all agree they're not worth celebrating because of
Yeah.
their faults?
Yes.
So I'm talking about a scale here. Where does it tip to it being appropriate to mention someone's faults and not be appropriate?
Okay, so
Who
I'm glad
gets
you
to
brought
decide?
that up. So since we're bringing up hyperbole, then I want to see you as our relationship moves on, and we'll lose people. We're bringing everything out during the funeral, everything, right? Because it's not just the big ones.
We don't
It's
have
also
time
the
for all
little
yours.
ones.
It's gonna be a
No,
long
it's true
funeral.
though. So why the respectable sins? No, let's celebrate them. They're awesome. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's all of it. So that means everybody, 24 hours after they die, everybody, y'all better put that up on your Facebook pages when you talk about how awesome Grandma so and so was, right?
Who gets to decide?
Who gets to decide?
Who gets to decide
You're
which
pretty
public
silent, though.
figures
Can you
are
answer
worth
that
celebrating and which aren't?
Oh, now it's so they got to be public. You're saying?
No, not necessarily. But I hope at my funeral it's mentioned that I was a total disaster and that only Christ saved me.
No, we're getting specific because that's what we're doing with him. Specific, right?
Go ahead, what would you say? Brian's in a casket and you're up there and people want you to say something.
Wow.
Man, he was crazy. He made me mad every day.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand why everything was a debate for him. I mean, he was good and all, but, you like that? Is that what we're going to be doing at memorials and funerals?
I just don't think it's as easy as we want it to be.
You don't think there's timing? I mean, come on, let's be discreet and have common sense.
Okay,
But you agree that there's a time.
Yes, but I also have to acknowledge that there's a distinct difference between Kobe Bryant and me, and Kobe Bryant and you.
So
Here's
you
what I
do
mean.
think it's
Here's
one
what I
thing?
mean.
Okay.
There's a cost to stardom. Every decision we make in life and every position we hold has costs and benefits.
Yeah.
There's a lot of benefits to being one of the greatest NBA players of all
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah.
But one of the costs is you're up for public scrutiny all the time. It's different if it's some random Joe.
So what are we gonna say about his daughters living now? One of them's 17, so she's probably all up in the news.
I don't know.
No. Hey, don't backpedal now. What are we gonna tell her?
Do you see how mean she
You're
is
a
to me?
believer. You're supposed to be a godly man.
Tender-hearted, sweet
Dude,
Brian.
You're in the boardroom at CNN. You're supposed to be a light in the world. No, listen. Can you tell me that?
Can you believe what she does to such a
No.
sweet man?
You see what you did? I thought you were all good holding your position. You're a believer. You're in the boardroom at CNN. You know there's a 17-year-old daughter that's left behind, just lost her sister and her dad. Would you agree, yeah, let's pass this article talking about this man's failure, pretty significant one, and it was a long time, all of that.
Can I answer that?
Would you be like, oh yeah, it's time, go ahead, pass it.
Can I
It's
answer that?
public.
Can I answer that?
Okay. From a perspective of a believer, and you know he has a 17-year-old daughter. That's how I want you to answer.
I would have no problem taking Will Leach, whatever his name is. He wrote an obituary for the New York Post that included 2 sentences mentioning the case in which he was accused of rape in the midst of a long obituary. Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
But maybe publishing an entire article about bad Kobe Bryant, like he's bad Leroy Brown or something. I mean, no, I don't think that's appropriate, but why would it be wrong in a large obituary to have just 1 or 2 mentions of this?
Roseanne says Brian is not wrong. We also shouldn't canonize people because they're dead. Something to keep in mind, as my mom taught us. How do you want people to remember you? Before you do things, consider your legacy. I agree. I don't think we should make people like perfect just because they died. But let's make it personal because, Kobe's famous and all that. When my dad passed, that first week, dude, I was not like, what kind of like disrespect is that? And you're not even there mentally. You do think about the things you will miss. As time has moved on, you reflect and you kind of have to heal some wounds and you get real about who that person was. But seriously, can you imagine me even bringing it up just to my mom? I really didn't like when Papi did such and such. 2 days after he passed away, to my sisters. Anything. For Isaiah to tell his sister, to his brothers when I pass away. Mommy, I mean, she was good and all, but y'all remember, she used to lose it a couple times. Oh my gosh.
So, okay, how about this then?
What the heck?
Let me give you a parallel example.
And I know, like, we're talking about assault. I'm just saying, if you're going to bring up Bin Laden, then let's bring up everything. That means
okay, I'm going to give you a better example.
Out.
I'm going to give you a better example.
Okay.
One of the presidents that made a huge difference in foreign diplomacy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really, truly a first of its kind trip to China. Many accomplishments in foreign policy was one Richard Nixon. He also happened to be the only president in American history to resign from office, and if he wouldn't have, he would have been impeached and thrown out by the Senate. When he passed away, do we pretend that he didn't resign? Just because it's going to hurt his kid to mention it? Oh! Victory lap! Victory lap!
Okay, so basically...
Oh, victory lap! You would delete it. You would delete history. You would say, pretend that the man didn't resign from the office of the presidency.
No.
Because you're too worried about his family. When that is part of the defining moments, even though it's embarrassing, of his public life.
Montina says, yes, it happened. Yes, it happened, and it's terrible. He's paid his dues and changed his life. How long is he supposed to be judged for that? We serve a forgiving God, and if we're supposed to be his ambassadors in the world, then what is our problem?
We do believe in a forgiving God, but I think one of the reasons we are able to articulate that is by pointing to our past, present, and future sinful nature and our need for a Savior today. I don't want to hyper-spiritualize it. I'm just saying, I agree with you. Like, let's just say we're at CNN, and it's just announced the guy's passed, and somebody wants to do a whole featurette piece on his infidelity. Totally inappropriate. But if you are CNN and you're about to do, like, a 30-minute piece on Kobe Bryant a week later?
A week? No, wait, okay.
Okay, fine. 2 days later.
Monday was inappropriate.
Hold on.
Today's Wednesday.
Monday or Tuesday. You're going to do a 30-minute piece. Would you delete the infidelity as part of his legacy?
Oh, delete?
You said before you would.
If I was in the boardroom at CNN, I would be a voice that would say, guys, can we just wait a couple of days?
So you would do a whole 30-minute piece on his life, and you wouldn't mention it once.
We were still... like recovering from the shock.
You didn't
Monday,
want to say
Tuesday.
yes.
No, tell me I'm lying though. Even as a public figure, we were still processing the fact that he just died with his daughter. How do you have the space in your mind, Janelle, to even go there? Like, really? Come on, as a human, can we just kind of just settle down a little bit and just acknowledge the fact that human has died. Roseanne says, Janelle, what about the man who dies and had...
No, up there. Further, right there.
What about the daughter whose father dies but had victimized her? Whose father has died? Can she use her voice?
Or is she obligated to only say nice things about her abusive father?
I think if you're grieving, you can do whatever you want to. I'm talking about us celebrating a public figure. Yeah, if it's your family member, you do whatever you need to do. And I'm not going to even criticize that. I'm saying as we cover people publicly, then we need to start being consistent and bring up little and small, everything for everybody. Like the next day. Next day.
Do you think the New York Post obituary piece should have included 2 sentences about the rape allegation like it did?
I like the way he approached it. But I do think there's a timing issue.
So what we're doing then is our decision on what the right time is Janelle's preference.
Right. I just think, listen, I don't know what the line is. I think there should be a line.
Okay.
We shouldn't just be throwing out people's past, and like we should be a little delicate and kind of try to be a little considerate about it. Just like when we go to, let's say, a co-worker's funeral, we got enough sense to not go up there and talk about all the shady stuff that person did.
Yeah.
Out of respect for the family. You try to think of something positive about this person and kind of focus on that. You're celebrating their life. And that's what I'm saying.
But this isn't a memorial service. It's a newspaper article. I mean, you're right. It's rude at a funeral to do that. But this isn't a funeral.
That's true.
The New York Post is posting an article about the man's life. They had 2 sentences mentioning the rape allegation. And people went bazonkers on him.
Yeah. India says, of course, for those who don't want to focus on that aspect of his life, this conversation is too soon, but the reality of it gives people the right to address it at any point they want to. If it didn't happen and the world didn't know, it couldn't be brought up. It saddens me to hear about it so soon because I want to remember him from all the great things he did and accomplished, and honestly, I forgot about this until today, but reality is not everyone has that mindset or thought process. I can't personally wrong them for that because it makes me sad or uncomfortable. That's a good point.
Look at India's here with the great name.
Very good point.
And the great points. No, I think it's because here's my thing. If you're a victim of sexual assault or rape and you know about this, like it's front of mind for you, of course you're going to mention this. And probably a time that's too soon for everyone else.
I agree.
But for you, it's a raw, fresh idea for the rest of your life. So I'm right.
Well, I was going to that article actually asked.
This one, you want to see it?
Yeah, it was like, shouldn't we
terrible throw.
Like, shouldn't we celebrate the complications of his legacy? Something like that. Or I saw another one that was like that. And what I'm saying is, he's not the only one that's leaving behind a complicated legacy. And so maybe we should just do that across the board with everybody. And why just him?
Well, because honestly, the biblical precedent is the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, so bring it up
in people's lives,
front and center from the beginning
not
for everybody, because everybody got stuff.
Everybody
got stuff.
That's not what I'm saying. I think the moment of a tragedy and at a funeral is inappropriate. Mm-hmm. But as people begin to process the passing of any person, it's only appropriate and natural to look at the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're this way. At your funeral, I would imagine you want the gospel proclaimed. And it can't be proclaimed unless someone says you're a sinner.
We're not just saying he's a sinner. We're being very specific. And what I'm saying is we all got specific stuff that people,
So for you, it could be she was real mean to Sweet Brian. Lots of days.
They got to bring that up.
And she got saved anyway.
Oh, my gosh.
Jesus lives.
No, yeah, I like India's point and the way it's true. Some people bring it up and it may be too soon for some and not for others.
Tanks is late to the party.
Tanks, what do you think?
He doesn't know. He just showed up.
Yes, he does.
Where you been?
Tanks,
what are you, lifting weights?
Oh my gosh. Tanks, do you think it's too early to bring up the sins committed by Kobe or allegedly committed? Well, he admitted some of it. Mike says, but the examples you gave, Brian, are part of Nixon's public actions, not personal past. What do you think?
That's problematic then for the political conservative who wants to mention Bill Clinton's indiscretions. Do you think that won't come up after he passes someday? Of course it'll come up. Those are private indiscretions. I think it's much more complex than that.
Eva says, I think we're going to remember him in different lights. I couldn't imagine being the victim if it happened and having his face and achievements pushed in my face everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Very good point. And Tim brings up Luke 17, 1 through 4.
We're going to pull up our trusty internet Google Bible.
Where it says, Jesus said to his disciples, things that cause people to stumble are bound to come, but woe to anyone through whom they come. It would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around his neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. So watch yourselves. If your brother or sister sins against you, rebuke them, and if they repent, forgive them. Even if they sin against you 7 times in a day and 7 times come back to you saying, I repent, you must forgive them. And you even said he publicly, not only did he admit his part in it and acknowledged that.
He didn't say it was rape, but he said that.
No, that's what I was going to say. He acknowledged and said, I understand that she and I look at that moment differently, but I did whatever wrong. But there was an agreement, like it was settled, right? His wife forgave him. So now we're agreeing and bringing up stuff that's like done in the past.
So
can you imagine what that will start looking like in our own lives? Christians that walk around saying we're forgiven and the Lord,
Does repentance remove consequence for sin?
There's been consequence, and he's taken care of it.
Isn't one of the consequences for a public figure committing a sin like that it follows in the rest of their lives?
Damaris says, why bring it up? Does it really matter? The man has passed away. Is it going to change anything? I pray that the person who suffered it will receive healing from what they went through. Other than that, I have my own things that I have to make sure I get right with God. Thank you. Robert says, so far, I'm only hearing those that don't have a relationship to basketball take stance on mentioning the other families and therefore are open to discuss Kobe's wrongs to justify that stance. In terms of his failures, we all have loved ones who may have had a tainted past, yet remain special to their loved ones. I have too many thoughts on this topic to type out on this format. I do wish and pray we find a way to remember our sentiments consistently. Amen. Thank you. No.
Well, but in fairness as well, Robert, I love you. I think super basketball fans, super Kobe fans are hypersensitive about this and are the ones who push back. And I don't think that they're dismissive of the severity of rape.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, all of us bring our own biases into a situation, and those biases impact our position and our thinking on whether it's appropriate or not.
I think this is complicated because it's on the media, it's a public figure, you can't really control it. So it's almost like, well, yeah, of course you're famous, so stuff is going to happen.
It is part of the cost of being famous, I think.
Yes. But on a personal level, if I was in a living room and just found out Uncle so-and-so just had a tragic accident, let's say he ran into a tree because he's been alcoholic all this time, it would be very offensive and insensitive for cousins to start popping up talking about, I see that it's his alcoholism and talking about all his shadiness. Like, can we just sit for a moment and just celebrate a person's life? Because it's a slippery slope. If we start doing that and being comfortable with that, that is a question.
I have the trouble of, and I know you're not actually doing this, I'll have to tease you about it, but it sounds like Janelle gets to be the judge of when it's time. And your time is different than someone else's. The victim of a sexual assault thinks, you know what the right time is? Right now.
Yeah.
And you think it should wait. So who gets to be the person that decides it's the right time? You or the victim of sexual assault. Don't you both have an equal right to say it's time or it's not time? Therefore, neither of you have the right.
The way I've handled it, I don't whatever people want to talk about is fine. But when they bring it up to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, my mind isn't even there. I don't like engaging there because I am focused on oh my gosh, can you imagine the sisters? They just lost their sister and their dad. So my mind can't even go there because I think it's lightly, to me, the tragedy is so huge that I can't even talk about, remember when he did such and such? I'll go there later, but man, it was a tragic accident. What the heck? Can we
So pure curiosity.
What the
If
heck?
you were in charge of this, when would be the appropriate time?
If I was in charge of that, I would be like, okay, y'all can put that article out, but I'm not putting it out.
No, okay.
So somebody else can put their name on that.
But seriously.
Where would I put the time?
If Janelle gets to be in charge of all media, and when all of us are allowed to talk about the rape accusation and his confession to infidelity.
Yeah.
When would you give us permission? Monday?
Okay, if I was,
Tuesday?
which I am not, and
But if
people
you
are
were,
different.
When?
I would even say after the memorial. There's something that happens after the memorial. It's closed, it's done, everybody shared their, that people could go and talk about whatever.
So you'd say it's after there's a
I
funeral.
think after the funeral, and considering he's a public figure, so it has to be public.
How long after the funeral? Like as soon as they say amen?
Yeah.
Or do you have to wait 24 hours after the
Oh
funeral?
my gosh. Now we know that's not what I'm saying.
I know it sounds annoying, but that's what people could start doing, because it's possible that you could say,
People could also
if someone
start,
immediately after the funeral starts bringing
Right.
up, you go, what are you
People
doing? They
could
just finished
also,
the funeral.
while we're talking about he's a public figure, people could also start going in funerals of public figures and taking the mic and doing it right there.
Right.
Are we going to be a society that says, really, y'all?
I hope not.
This is where we've come? Or are we going to have some respect? That's what I'm saying. So while you're trying to make it like, well, why do you get to decide? We all know there's a consensus of what's sensitive, what's not, what's straight outrageous and disrespectful and cold,
But
and
what's
what's
interesting
not.
is we don't all agree, and that's why this is a discussion. Because this article came out from NBC having this very debate
Yeah.
about whether or not it's the appropriate time, so everybody does not agree.
Thank you, Callie. She said maybe once the body cools. I mean, hello, thank you. Kelly says, too soon. The man has passed away. I think it's time to let go of the bad and focus on the good things he did. Who wants to be remembered posthumously for their mistakes?
But see, I think in some sense, as Christians, don't we partly, if not completely, want to be remembered as sinful individuals? If the gospel is preached at your funeral, it has to be preached in the context of sinners needing a
God doesn't
needing
bring
God.
up your past sins. We're talking about bringing up specific sins. It's done. So let's take my husband. When I'm being remembered, I would hate it if he looks back and includes. You're bringing up theology, like, well, yeah, she was a sinner. Yeah, he gets that. But to remember stuff that he said he forgot, and to be like, yeah, I can't believe she did such and such.
But that's not what that's not what I'm saying.
That's what we're doing.
You know that's not what I'm saying.
Oh my gosh! See, he can't handle the heat. Get out the kitchen.
We better go, friend. This has been
Bye,
fun.
guys.
Know that we don't have any of the answers here.
No, we don't really. And
But since the world's
yes.
talking about it, I think we need to have a healthy discussion
And
about
it's
it as well.
complicated because if you were a victim, and we get that, you know.
She's basically just saying I'm right. It's
Yeah, exactly.
at the end of the whole thing.
Look, a lot of smart comments. Tanks, I got too much to say to type on here. That's right. You should have.
He just doesn't want to embarrass
He's
you.
tripping. Shell says, the victim who took money over justice, he admitted to cheating. To me, if she chose to take money over seeking justice for assault, then
I'm not going to go
complicated
there.
topic, yes.
Peace out.